Hello. In this video I'm going to create a patch from scratch based on my track System Out. If you want to listen to the original, you can click the link in the corner of this video or in the description below. If you have any questions or queries, just drop them in the comments and I will respond. So let's get on with it. Everything starts with a master clock. So this LFO here in CHIPZ is going to be the master clock. I put that into Cellz, and then that gives me two gate outs, which are clock outs, and basically we have one which goes into a clock divider over here. So that gives us our clock, and then a divide by 2 clock, a divide by 3, etc., and some smaller ones. And then we take another gate out, another clock out, and we use that to clock Cara here, which is Marble's clone. And Cara gives us some random clocks which are based on the master clock, so we'll be using those in a minute. So let's start off with a kick drum. So the kick drum goes on the divide by 4 click, and I use one of the sounds in this. This has got like 4 sort of analog sort of percussive sounds, let's put that into, so we can take the clock for that, put it into, this is a reverb box thing module, and we're going to plug that into here. It's actually a stereo reverb, so we can have left and right out, and we can adjust the amount of from no reverb to loads of reverb. So we'll just do that much at the moment, and then you can do some feedback on the reverb there as well. Right, let's get a hi-hat from the fast clock, going into hi-hat module, output of that, that's sounding good already, and then we can modulate the hi-hat on one of these LFOs here, something like that. It's not in time with the thing, but I don't mind. So the other one I'm going to do is the sort of clap sort of sound, which I had coming off. It's divide by 6. It's not really a clap, nothing like a clap, but here we go. I'll plug it into here, then you get the hi-hat on left and the clap on the right. And then to go along with these, we had some other little tom sounds from divide by 5 and a divide by 7. These toms are also from this module here, so we'll plug those 2 clock signals into there. And then we can take those 2 clock signals, those 2 toms. Here's one of them. Let's see. There it is. And the other one. You can fiddle around. That. So we have those ones. We had another special little tom sound, which was here. Now this one had a choice of which sounds, which rhythms to use. So I'm going to take a random output from Cara, and we're going to actually split that so we can use it in multiple places. I'm going to take one of them and put it into this switch so I can choose where it goes, and we're going to take a random pattern from here, and we're going to split this one as well. I'm going to plug that one into the other choice switch, and then I'm going to plug the trigger for tom sound into here, and the output from that tom into here. So now if I switch on one side, it's using this divide by 3, switch on the other side, it's using the random one from Cara. So I think that's most of the percussive stuff done. Let's get a bit of the sort of funny sort of drone sort of background sound that we had. So for that I had this oscillator. I took the square output from it and I took the triangle output from it, and I mixed them together in this mini mixer here. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? I accidentally knocked the speed of my LFO. Right. That'll do. Right, so I mix those two, and I take the mix of those and I plugged that into this filter down here, and I took the output to that filter, two outputs actually, the low pass and the high pass, and I put those into this mixer here. This, you can hear it just about. I'm going to fiddle with that in a minute. So we got those two. Let's turn those up to max. That goes to this filter. So the idea is we're going to modulate this filter based on a wobbling signal, which is a mixture of this random voltage that comes out of Cara and an audio signal coming from CHIPZ. And you can adjust the mix of those two. So that's the drone. Alright, what else did we have? We had a little metallic sound that came from oscillator number 2. So let's go check that out. Oscillator number 2, I had audio signal. Well, let's not do that second at the moment. Let's take the sawtooth, I think, of that, and that went into this VCA, and then the output of the VCA goes into one of these like that. but you don't really want it on all the time. We wanted more of a sound. So what I did, I took two different rhythms, one from Cara, which is the one that we've copied here. Put that on there, and I took another one which was from this slow clock. Put that in there, and I took the selected version of that. I use that as a trigger for maths, where we generate an envelope. The envelope for maths is used to trigger our VCA. Right, so that's that, and then I had, just to give it a bit more of a metallic sound, I had this audio signal going to the X and then etc. So the next step, we had the dinky sound, there was a sort of melody sound, and there was another one coming from rings. Right, so let's do that. What we had, I'll say, another choice of signals. We had one which was rotating clock divider number 3, which I think, if I remember correctly, I've copied over here, and the other choice was T1, which is from Cara, and the output from that was used to generate a snare sound, but I don't use the snare sound. I'll show you what it sounds like briefly. But we don't do that, we push the snare into the audio input into rings, where we process it and produce this sound. You'll hear in a second. Most of the knobs are in the same position as they were when I last did it, otherwise I'd have to be twiddling all these knobs as well. There we go. So that's the snare, but going through rings. There we go. Ooh, sounding good. And then all these switches I can put in the middle so patterns don't go through, so they're not triggered, which is quite good. We have a chirpy sound to do. We have the melody sound, sort of melody. Right, so I was running out of voices, sort of, so I used Typhoon just as a really simple voice. So Typhoon has got two outputs, left and right, so plug those into here. Why have I run out of space? How have I run out of space? Maybe that goes into there. That's interesting. Right. So that's Typhoon's output. And then the input to Typhoon, I think I briefly used just one of these oscillators. Like that. And I just sampled it. And now I can just play that little mini sample, as a sample, and we can put the pitch of that. The pitch of that comes in from. Where did the pitch of that come from? I think the pitch came in from X3 on Typhoon on Cara, and the trigger would have been T2. And so that's getting random voltages and the same random rhythm from Cara. And I had that. Right, so then we had some controls to change this. These will come all from this tripod up here, which is basically 3 variable knobs, and we plugged one into the spread for Cara, one into the bias, and one into the texture of Cara, no, of Typhoon. Okay, that's sounding good. And then to just to stick in the background like that, I had a triangle and the sawtooth from this oscillator going into there we go, going into Typhoon. It's just mixed in a little bit, so we can go. And then we had one other extra cool little thing, which was basically taking the mix out of all of these drums from here and just putting that into the XFM on there. And I think that was most of it, apart from, so now the notes, this, mustn't forget that. Oh yes, so we have 2 voltages that come out of this sequencer, one which I put into the plate, into the rotate input on here, which basically allows us to we can program different voltages onto this mini sequencer thing, so the voltages that come out of here can change the way the clock divider works. So now I've just programmed in some voltages into here to change the clock divider, so we can go from this drum pattern, that one, and similarly we can use the voltages on another set of voltages from it to pretty much how I had it set up. So the only other thing actually, I think, the pattern for this, the trigger for that melody came in through here, so I could mute it. So let's put it on that switch. Right, I think that's roughly it. Need to balance it maybe a bit. Hold on there, it sort of pauses, like it should do. Didn't that time. Nope. This again. Switch that on, switch that off, switch that off, and go. Turning this should change the spread of the notes coming from Cara, roughly. fiddling random stuff now. The reverb's a bit too high on that.
Alright, there we go.
Oh, you know what I've totally forgotten to do? Maybe it won't make a big difference, but what I did have was part of the kick was being split and sent to this envelope follower, and then the signal from the envelope follower was being sent back into here to compress. That's well heavy compression, but there we go, a little bit of compression. Well, maybe we'll just stop there. Or maybe we won't.